My name is Emma, and for most of my life, I believed in happily ever afters. I grew up watching romantic movies and reading books where love always conquered all. But no one ever told me that, in real life, some love stories end without explanation, leaving you to pick up the pieces of a heart that feels too shattered to heal. I was 28 when I met Gabriel. My life was simple, maybe even boring. I worked in a small bookstore in the city, spent my evenings reading or watching TV shows, and spent weekends walking through the park or sitting at my favorite cafe. I wasn't unhappy, but my life wasn't exactly exciting either. Then, one ordinary October afternoon, everything changed. I was at my usual cafe, flipping through a book I had just picked up, when I noticed him. Gabriel was sitting a few tables away, alone, reading the same book I had finished a few days earlier. I found it funny, but I didn't pay much attention at first. Still, it was hard to ignore him. There was something about the way he was so focused, the faint smile that appeared on his face as he read. For a moment, our eyes met. He smiled and I quickly looked away, my cheeks burning. But before I could hide behind my book, he stood up and walked toward me. "Do you like that author too?" he asked, pointing to the book in my hands. "He's incredible, isn't he? The way he puts emotions into words is amazing." I smiled awkwardly and replied, "Yes, he's one of my favorites. This book stayed with me for days after I finished it." Gabriel smiled again, his warmth immediately putting me at ease. "I hope it has the same effect on me," he said, as he pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, as though we were already friends. And strangely, it felt natural. We started talking about the book, about other authors, about life. It was the kind of conversation where time flies and you don't even notice. By the time I glanced at my watch, it was already dark outside. He smiled and said, "I hope this isn't the last time we talk. Can I see you again?" And that's how it all began. The months that followed felt like a dream. Gabriel was everything I'd ever imagined in a partner. Kind, thoughtful, funny, and intelligent. He had a way of making me feel special, like I was the only person in the world who mattered to him. He'd show up at the bookstore with flowers or my favorite coffee, and he always found ways to surprise me. "You're amazing, Emma," he told me one evening as we walked hand in hand through the park. "Before you, my life was just work. But now, it feels like everything makes sense." I fell deeply in love with him. We started planning a future together, a cozy house in a quiet town where I could open my own bookstore and he could work remotely as a programmer. He promised me forever, told me our love was unlike anything he'd ever felt, and I believed him. For a while, everything was perfect. But as they say, perfection never lasts. The first signs were small, almost unnoticeable. Gabriel used to text me every morning, but one day his message didn't come. I assumed he was busy and brushed it off. But over time, his texts became less frequent, and he started canceling our plans at the last minute. "Is everything okay, Gabriel?" I asked him one night while we sat on his couch. He smiled, but it wasn't the same smile I had fallen in love with. "Yeah, just work stuff. Don't worry, okay?" I wanted to believe him. I told myself it was just a phase, that everything would go back to normal soon. But deep down, Something felt off. Weeks passed, and the distance between us grew. Gabriel stopped making plans with me, and our once regular dates became rare. I decided to surprise him, hoping to rekindle the spark between us. I cooked his favorite dinner, bought a bottle of wine, and played the music he loved. I waited at his place for hours, but Gabriel never showed up. I called him repeatedly, sent messages, but there was no answer. The food went cold, the music stopped, and I sat there alone, holding back tears. The next morning, I went to his apartment. I knocked on the door again and again, but no one answered. His phone went straight to voicemail. It was like he had vanished. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and heartbreak. Gabriel was gone. He didn't return my calls, didn't reply to my messages, and no one seemed to know where he was. I went to the cafe where we first met, hoping to see him there, but he wasn't. When I asked the barista, their answer hit me like a punch. He hasn't been here in weeks. Desperate for answers, I reached out to one of his friends. Gabriel? Oh, he moved, his friend said casually, as if it were nothing. He mentioned he needed some time for himself. I thought you knew. I felt my chest tighten. Moved? Without telling me? Without even saying goodbye? I spent weeks replaying every moment we shared, analyzing every word, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Had I missed something? Did I do something to push him away? But the truth was, I would never know. Gabriel had taken all the answers with him. Months have passed, and I still think about him sometimes. Not him exactly, but the emptiness he left behind. The promises he made, the future we planned. All of it feels like a distant dream now. Something that was never real. But I've learned something important. No one else can be responsible for your happiness. Love can be beautiful, but sometimes it also teaches you how to be strong on your own. Did you like today's story? So, leave your like and subscribe to continue watching the channel's videos. Until the next story.